In this video, you will get a detailed review of Panther Chameleon husbandry. In addition to this video, there is a companion PDF care summary download, a website explaining all the details, and a podcast episode so you can study on the go.
Welcome to the Multimedia Chameleon Academy. Once you decide to add a Panther Chameleon to your household, you are embarking on an incredible journey. My name is Bill Strand. I'm the founder of the Chameleon Academy, whose mission is to promote the best chameleon husbandry possible. Today we're focusing in on the Panther Chameleon, and this is the video review of the Panther Chameleon Care Summary, which is available on the Chameleon Academy website, linked below in the description.
The Chameleon Academy care summaries are more detailed than the usual care sheets and require explanation. Once you understand the depth behind each parameter, the care summary essentially becomes a snapshot of the basics of chameleon husbandry. There is a great deal of information here. You can, of course, play this video as many times as you like, but this link up here will take you to the Panther Chameleon Information Hub. The Panther Chameleon, or Furcifer pardalis, is a colorful chameleon with a definite personality. The males are brightly colored and seem to touch on every color of the rainbow across their wide range in Madagascar. The females have a smaller body size and sport pinks, oranges, salmon, and sometimes blues and purples. The babies are born with cryptic brown and white patterns. A great joy in keeping Panther chameleons is getting a 3-month-old juvenile and being able to watch their colors come in as they grow up. Panther chameleons reach adulthood in about 1 year and have a lifespan of 5 to 7 years.
Though as our husbandry gets better and better, the Panther Chameleon longevity gets longer and longer. We are actively pushing our husbandry forward every year, and it's exciting to do this video to share with you the latest in Panther Chameleon husbandry.
So let's start with the cage section. There is a lot packed into this graphic. The physical dimensions of an acceptable cage are 2 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot tall. You can also get a 36 inches by 18 inches by 36 inches tall. But an ideal cage is 48 inches by 24 inches by 48 inches tall, or bigger. The only thing magic about these numbers is that these are the commonly available, commercially made cages. But the bigger you can go, the better. And if you are able to make your own cage that is bigger, then go for it. In every care summary I write, I have to spell out plainly that you can keep only 1 chameleon per cage. People want chameleons to be communal so much that it seems there is no way to put that desire to bed. So I hear people say pairs can be kept together, females can be kept together, siblings that have been raised up together, or just friendly ones. One thing that hasn't changed over the decades I've worked with chameleons is that there is no magic combination that allows chameleons to be kept together in an enclosure that restricts their movements. Make sure you have a separate cage for each chameleon. Cage type refers to screen, hybrid, or glass cages. This decision is made by comparing the temperature and humidity requirements of the Panther Chameleon to the temperature and humidity in the room you will keep the cage. The more you have to modify the conditions, the more solid sides you need. So we're going to return to this part after we talk about temperature and humidity. The forest edge refers to how the inside of the cage must look. You want there to be 2 distinct sections to the cage. An open area where your chameleon can bask and soak up the UVB, and then a hidden area behind dense plant leaves. This is the forest edge, and gives chameleons the environment they need. The open area is easy, because this is how we see our chameleons. We like this. But a vast majority of cages out there are missing the hidden area. If you look at a chameleon cage, and there is not a place where the chameleon can hide its body on a horizontal branch out to view from the outside world, the cage is inadequate. This is the #1 missing feature in chameleon cages. They need a hidden area to feel safe, especially for sleeping. Live plants are preferred for the cage interior. They provide the practical aspects of humidity gradients and a major aesthetic beauty. Many people are challenged by keeping plants alive, but this is a valuable skill that comes with chameleon keeping. The art of chameleon keeping, in its essence, is creating and maintaining an environment that your chameleon thrives in. And live plants are part of that. Panther chameleons do well with their ambient temperature in the low to mid 70s Fahrenheit. At nighttime, it can drop to 60, A nighttime drop in temperature is good. It allows them to get a deep sleep. And don't worry if the nighttime dips even into the 50s. They'll be fine. What is important is that they can warm up during the day. And definitely do not use heat lights during the night. They can see red light and more of the light spectrum than we can, so no lights at night for any reason. It will disrupt their sleep patterns. For basking, the mid-80s to 90 degrees Fahrenheit is sufficient. Humidity is an important part of hydration. The important part is to have humidity rise close to 100% at night to simulate a fog bank rolling in. Chameleons breathe in the moist air and thus do not dehydrate over the night. A high humidity night with them waking up to a morning layer of dew is usually the hydration they need. So we shoot for high humidity at night, and then we let the cage dry out during the day.
This is important because constantly wet surfaces will promote bacterial, fungal, and mold growth. And a constantly wet perching branch will create sores on the bottoms of your chameleon's feet. This is why it's critical that the cage surfaces dry out during the day. Maintaining humidity is the prime reason why hybrid cages are so useful for chameleon keepers. So now it's time to circle back around and talk about cage type. We have cage options that range from 100% ventilation to greatly reduced ventilation. The less ventilation, the more control you have over the interior cage conditions, and you're able to raise the humidity or temperature above ambient room conditions. What this means is if you live in an area that has perfect weather, temperature, and humidity for panther chameleons, then you get a screen cage. If you live in an environment, like most people do, where you have pretty good temperature but you need help getting the humidity numbers up, then that's where you look into a hybrid cage. If you have to increase both the humidity and the temperature, that's when you might start looking into a glass cage. I live in Southern California, where the weather is great for most species, and so I make extensive use of screen cages outdoors. But inside, I need help with humidity, and so I use hybrid cages indoors. Different cages for different conditions. That's just intelligent chameleon husbandry. Because this is such a passionate topic, I do have to mention that you'll hear from a sizable chunk of the chameleon community that chameleons need screen cages or they'll die. Simply, this isn't true. Not at all. And we have a long ways to go to educate the chameleon community. Just keep in mind that the cage type, screen, hybrid, glass, it's just a tool for you to use depending upon how much you need to change your ambient conditions to give your chameleon what they need. I know it's complicated and difficult for someone just starting out to understand all of this, and you just want to be told what to do so you do the right thing in the beginning. And you'll figure out the deep understanding later. If you aren't sure which caging to go with, and the group that you've decided to be part of is a screen cage group, go ahead, get a screen cage. There are things that we can do to the screen cage so you get the benefits of a hybrid cage. Yes, these are going to be hacks, but it's a bridge that gives you a little bit more experience so you can be confident going forward in what you need in a chameleon cage. This section of the care summary shows how to set up the timing for both your lighting and your hydration equipment. Basically, we're looking for high humidity and cooler temperature nights with a lower humidity and higher temperature days, just like in the real world. I showed the lighting and the hydration on the same chart because they work together to create the environment we're looking for.
For my hydration, I use a misting system, a fogger, and a dripper. I want to avoid spraying my chameleon directly because they just plain do not like that. I like to begin the early morning fogging around 1 a.m. I want to simulate a fog bank rolling in and humidifying the cage. Before I start the fogger, I like to run my mister for about 30 or so seconds to lay down a layer of moisture. This helps the fog stick around. Otherwise, it tends to bounce off the dry leaves. It isn't critical when fogging starts. You can start the fogging at midnight or 1 a.m. or whenever. This is not an exact parameter at all. You can fog continuously until the lights come on or do every 30 minutes on and off, whatever your particular situation requires to give you high humidity that sticks around. The more screen cage you have, the more you will have to fog. I lay down a layer of dew and then start the fogger. So I fog throughout the early morning. Then, right before the morning lights come on, I run the mister for a couple of minutes to really douse the cage surfaces. This way, the chameleon wakes up to dew all over and can drink to fully hydrate. The lights come on, and then I usually do not hydrate through the rest of the day. I will occasionally put a dripper on around 3 p.m. just to test the hydration. If the chameleon ignores the dripper, then I know my hydration is doing its job. If the chameleon runs to the dripper and drinks, I know he is dehydrated and I need to work on things. Of course, I am monitoring his poop all along the way, so it isn't like the dripper is the only test. Once the lights are off, I run the misters to start the night off with some good mist to tide the cage over until the 1 a.m. fog bank rolls in again. And now let's look at how the lights coordinate with the hydration. The reason why the mistings happen at night is because, as I said, chameleons hate to be sprayed. And no matter how thirsty I am, I don't like to be sprayed in my face either. At night, your chameleon is most likely sleeping inside the leaves. Not always, but is often out of the line of spray. So my goal is to get all the misting done before the chameleon is up and doing his thing. In the morning, I will turn on the white light, UVB light, and basking light. I leave the white light and UVB light on all day, which is 12 hours. The basking light I leave on as long as it is needed. This depends on your ambient conditions and cage type. The primary purpose of the basking light is to give them their initial warm-up. It really isn't meant to be their one place in the cage where they huddle all day. If that is the case, then the ambient temperature should be raised. Ideally, they bask for 30 minutes, 1 hour, even a leisurely 2 hours. But after that, they should be done. Unless you need the heat lamp to maintain proper ambient temperature, put the basking bulb on timer and have it turn off after however long it takes your chameleon to warm up. That is what this fading line for the basking temperature means. Now let's circle back up to this UVB section. UVB is a special wavelength of light that allows our body to produce vitamin D3. This vitamin is what allows our body to absorb calcium from what we eat. Without vitamin D3, calcium flows uselessly through our digestive system, and we will get rickets. The exact same thing happens to chameleons. We call it metabolic bone disease. See in this chameleon how the leg joints are bowed and how the tongue hangs out because the jaw bones are too weak to hold in the tongue? This is a disorder which will result in a slow, miserable death and is 100% preventable by providing an easily obtained UVB light.
Now, we have to be careful with UVB. These are the same wavelengths that cause sunburns and cancer, so we need to learn some basics to effectively and safely use UVB light.
UVB lights come in many forms, but they are specialty bulbs, so you have to get one that specifically says UVB on it. The most effective bulb currently available is the T5-sized fluorescent bulb, and that is the one we're going to focus on here. Although chameleons can see UVB, we cannot. So to know it is there, we need to use special meters. The one most used is the Solar Meter 6.5, which measures UVB power on the UV index scale used by the World Health Organization. For panther chameleons, we in the community have proven that UVI3 is effective for them to get the vitamin D3 they need for a healthy life.
The Chameleon Academy care summaries have the distinction of being very detailed on the use of UVB lights. This is because it's easy to use them incorrectly and give either too much or too little UVB light.
When UVB light comes off the bulb, we can break it up into 3 zones. Directly off the bulb is the caution zone. These levels are higher than we want to expose our chameleon to. We don't want them hanging out in the red zone. Next is the working zone. This zone is bordered on the high side by the maximum UV index that we want to allow inside of our cage, and on the low side by the minimum effective UV index. Below the working zone is the ineffective zone, where the UVB levels are just too weak for the chameleons to use. The challenge is that we're still determining what all these values are. The one thing we do know for panther chameleons is that UV index 3 is effective, and so we know that can be placed in the working zone. The other important levels that we need to set up our cage is the maximum UVI we want to allow in our cage. Though we don't know at what point the UVB dosage becomes a health risk, present working targets are around UVI 6 to 7.8. So for this care summary, I will go with those levels has the maximum cage UV index. The problem with figuring out all these numbers is that it's a lot of work to measure the effect over time. But we will continue to work on it. So the UVB section tells you what bulbs to use at what distances. To majorly complicate things, the UVB levels are affected by bulb type, bulb strength, the quality of the fluorescent fixture driver circuitry, what kind of reflector is used on the fixture, whether or not the UVB goes through the filter of a screen top to the cage, how long the bulb has been on, and finally, the age of the bulb. With all these variables, the best way to set up your UVB is to have a solar meter 6.5. But these run about $200 US, so I've tried to provide the next best thing in this simple chart. Here I have provided a simple set of conditions that you can easily recreate. First, I'm using the Arcadia Pro T5 line of UVB bulbs. I chose these because the fixture and reflector were designed specifically to work with a high-quality bulb. And just as important, the bulb and the reflector are sold together, so it's easy for you to order exactly what I am using here. I have indulged in one complexity, and that is showing distances for two bulb strengths, the 6% and 12%. The other major brand on the market is the ZoomEd Reptisun T5, 5.0, and 10.0. You can roughly equate the 5.0 to the 6% and the 10.0 to the 12%. Although these bulbs are very good, I'm not as thrilled with the fixtures.
Now it's important to note that the numbers that I'm presenting here are for a UVB lamp above the screen top of the cage. That screen top filters out UVB light, so it weakens the intensity. When you work with any chart like this, it's critical that you know if the light is going through a screen top or not. These numbers are for UVB light going through the filter of a screen cage top.
Both the 6% and the 12% will give you the UVI3 you are looking for, just at different distances. Now I hate to throw on yet another variable, but UVB bulbs lose strength over their lifetime, so you need to check your levels every couple months. The distances I give here, 6 inches for the 6% and 12 inches for the 12%, is the best lifetime average to ensure that the basking branch stays within this effective range. So say we have a 6% bulb 6 inches away from the back of our chameleon. At the beginning of the bulb's life, this level could be at a UVI 5 or 6, and then taper off to a UVI 2.6 after a year. But I have to put one distance value on the care summary, and 6 inches for the 6% and 12 inches for the 12% should keep the basking branch within our specified working range.
And I want to say the 6 inches for the 6% and the 12 inches for the 12%, that's pure coincidence. Don't read anything into the bulb naming.
One thing that is not on the care summary is how much the bulb should be lifted off the top of the cage. Remember that the levels immediately off the bulb are excessively high. Say we lay a 6% bulb on top of the cage. We get a couple of inches of red caution zone inside the cage. This is okay for chameleons that can't reach those couple of inches, but we have to have special awareness for chameleons that are small enough to climb the screen and hang upside down on the cage top. They will then be exposing their unprotected belly to excessively high UVB. If you have a small chameleon that can still do this, simply put some 3-inch stands under the ends of the fixture and raise it up until the chameleon grows up enough to not screen walk. Now what happens if we use the 12% bulb strength? Wow, talk about red zone. Here is where it is healthy to raise the fixture 6 inches above the cage and have the back of the chameleon 6 inches below the cage top. This gives us the recommended 12-inch distance, and we don't lose valuable cage space to the caution zone. UVB is obviously a deep subject that requires some study to understand. The simplest I can make it is that you can have an effective setup by simply using one of these, set up above your chameleon cage, this far from your chameleon's back while they are on their basking branch. finally, we come to feeding and nutrition. Feeding is simple in concept. You feed the chameleon as much as they will eat until they are full grown, and then you taper off to about 5 feeder insects every other day. You will know when your panther chameleon is getting too much food when the fat pads in their casques start bulging. Hopefully you catch it before this gets too far and ease off on the food. Notice in these pictures how the healthy panthers have casques, or top of their head, that's flat or slightly indented. In the unhealthy panthers, the casques or the top of their head have these swollen areas, and that is unhealthy fat. The important thing about food is that it is nutritious. This means you have to actually take care of the feeder insects. You need to feed your crickets and worms and roaches and such, so there is more than an empty shell being fed to your chameleon. Supplementation powders are used to add to the feeder insect's nutrition. Vitamins we need to be careful about because there are some that are fat soluble. This means the excess doesn't just flush out of the system with water. It gets stored in their cells, so overdose is possible. On the care summary, I have given ingredient limits so we can analyze any supplement we run across. Before the video, let's make it simple. I recommend using one of these plain calcium-based, fat-soluble, vitamin-free items for every feeding use. And then every other week, I do a feeding with revitalized D3 or Repashy Calcium Plus Low D, which have small amounts of vitamin A. Any of these have been shown to work. This supplementation schedule requires there to be solid UVB light at UV index 3 in the cage, as shown in this care summary. This is critical. Some supplements have vitamin D3 in them to make up for not having UVB. This care summary goes in the opposite direction, towards getting D3 naturally through UVB. Dietary D3 through supplementation can result in overdose if given too much. So UVB is the safest way to do it.
And so, next steps. That was a lot of information. But when you're learning about a specific species, you do have to learn about the larger subject of chameleon husbandry. And if you are doing that research, the best resource for you is the ChameleonAcademy.com website, because that contains the latest in information from breeders, keepers, veterinarians, and scientists from around the world. And listen to your breeder. We are so fortunate in the Panther Chameleon community to have a number of very experienced and very good breeders that can handhold you through the steps. And really, that's what they're there for. So, what do you do if your breeder is saying something different than what you're hearing on the Chameleon Academy? Don't sweat it. We are just coming at it from a different perspective. Panther Chameleon breeders want to make it as simple as possible to make sure the most people are successful right from the beginning. Me at the Chameleon Academy, I'm working to push our husbandry forward so we can get that longevity out of our Panther Chameleons. And so this different approach is going to have some different components. If you are working with a breeder who is hand-holding you through the process, feel comfortable to go with what they say until you have enough experience under your belt that you can start making decisions as to what little things you want to change. What you see here in the Chameleon Academy will work, and obviously the breeder has made their method work. You're gonna be okay for these beginning stages. If you came to this video because you wanted to learn how to take care of your Panther Chameleon, there you go. But this video is actually part of something bigger. This is part of a story that I am telling over 2 years, where I'm going to be getting 2 pairs of Panther Chameleons, and I'm going to be documenting step by step how I raise them up, how I breed them, how I incubate the eggs, and how I raise up the babies. And so this is a 2-year journey that you're going to be along with me. And to the people following along with my story, I'd like to say that I have selected my bloodlines, and I will be getting them in about 2 months, of which I will introduce you to each and every one. But for now, take this, which is our latest understanding, and create the healthiest home for that incredible, beautiful mini tree dragon. As for me, it's time for me to go set up a cage for my Panther Chameleon coming in. I'll see you later.